I looked at the paternity test results again, shaking my head in disbelief. 13 years of my life built on calculated lies. My name is Grant Ellison, and I'm 44 years old. Each morning, I wake at 5:30, check my tools, and head out to rebuild other people's homes while mine lies in ruins. The hidden photos on Paige Ellison's phone, my wife, showed hospital rooms I'd never seen, with Rafael Ortiz's tattooed arm cradling my son Henry while I was deployed. My throat tightened. The timestamps didn't lie, even when Paige did. Sophie Ellison, my bright-eyed artist, carried Trevor Hines's DNA, not mine. I didn't throw things or scream. I called Monica Patel, my attorney, instead. Some men burn everything down when betrayed. I chose differently. The three of them would face what they created, not through revenge, but through justice. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I never planned to come home early that day. The bathroom demo at the Harding's place wrapped up faster than expected when we discovered the subfloor was in better shape than we'd quoted for. Good news for them, complicated news for me. It was just after 2 when I pulled into our driveway, that odd mid-afternoon time when the house should have been empty. Henry would be at baseball practice for another hour, Sophie at her art club until 4. Paige's car sat in the driveway, though she'd mentioned lunch with her sister downtown. Little things that didn't quite line up had been happening more often lately. The front door creaked the way it always did. I'd been meaning to oil those hinges for months. Funny how you notice small imperfections in your house, right before the foundation cracks beneath you. I found Paige at the kitchen island, hunched over her phone, scrolling through photos. There was something about her posture, tense, secretive, that made me pause in the doorway. When she heard me, her thumb jabbed frantically at the screen, trying to close whatever she was looking at. "Hey," I said, setting my tool belt on the counter. "Thought you were having lunch with Kara." "She canceled." Paige's voice had that practiced casual tone, the one that never quite reached her eyes. "Just looking at some old photos." I moved closer, curious now. "What kind of photos?" "Nothing important." She tried to turn the screen away, but not before I caught a glimpse of a hospital room, a newborn, and the edge of a man's forearm in the corner of the frame. Tan skin, with what looked like a baseball logo tattooed on the wrist. Not my arm. "Who took these?" I kept my voice steady, the way I'd learned to stay calm when we found unexploded ordnance in Afghanistan. Paige didn't look up. "They're old. You've seen them before." "I haven't." My mouth went dry. "And that's not my arm." She snorted, a dismissive sound I'd grown too familiar with lately. "It's a nurse. Or my cousin." "Phones glitch, Grant." "Your cousin doesn't have a baseball tattoo," I said, reaching over and zooming in on the image before she could pull away. "And the timestamp is during my deployment." Paige snapped the phone face down. "You're paranoid. You come back from war and go hunting for problems. That's what you do." The accusation stung like a slap. "What I do," I said, matching her tone, "is tell the truth and pay the bills." "Who is he?" Paige folded her arms, shifting to offense. "You left me alone. For months. Twice. Do you know what that felt like? Answer the question." "You're controlling," she shot back. "You always have been. The budget, the house, the schedule that kept food on the table," I said. My voice dropped lower, a dangerous calm settling in. "Who is he?" Paige's eyes flashed with something. Anger, fear. I couldn't tell which. "You're imagining things. Those are edits from a parenting class. You just want an excuse to punish me." I leaned in until we were breathing the same air. "Stop rewriting my memory. I see a delivery room I wasn't in. I see a man I don't know. I see a timeline that doesn't lie. If there's nothing to hide, unlock the phone." Paige clutched it tighter. I don't owe you proof of anything. Biology doesn't make a father. The words hit like shrapnel. Then telling the truth shouldn't scare you. Before she could answer, I heard the familiar thump of cleats in the mudroom. Henry, home early, grass-stained and happy, oblivious to the earthquake happening in the kitchen. I lowered my voice to a thread. Guest room, tonight. We're not doing this in front of Henry and Sophie. Paige tried the soft voice then, the one she used when she wanted something. Grant, don't blow up our family over some photos. Our family didn't start with a lie, I said, but it's ending without one. After Henry headed upstairs to shower, I pulled out my phone and texted Monica Patel, the family lawyer I used when subcontractors got slippery. Need you for personal. Emergency. Then I wrote a note and put it on the fridge where both kids would see it. I love you. I won't lie to you. I won't make you choose. I stood in the hallway, listening to the guest room door latch click as Paige shut herself in for the night. My phone felt heavy in my hand. Would Monica answer tonight? Or would Paige make the first legal strike? I didn't sleep. Not really. Just lay on the couch, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling until the first gray light crept through the blinds. By 5:30, I was up making coffee. Black, strong enough to dissolve a spoon. The house was tomb quiet except for the gurgle of the machine. I'd rehearsed what to say a dozen times, but when I finally dialed Monica's office at 7 sharp, the words came out simple and clean. I need to see you today. It's about Paige. Her receptionist started the usual dance about scheduling, but I cut in. Tell her it's Grant Ellison. Tell her it's about fraud and protection. 2 minutes later, I had a noon appointment. I spent the next hour digging through the filing cabinet, pulling bank statements, mortgage docs, deployment orders, anything that mapped the timeline in black and white. The weight of the folder felt good in my hands. Solid. Real. Remember what my drill sergeant used to say during training? If you can't explain it clearly, you don't understand it clearly. I didn't have fancy words for what was happening, just the bare facts. While I was deployed, Paige had gotten pregnant. Twice. Not by me. And for 13 years, she'd let me believe a lie. The drive to Monica's office downtown took longer than usual. Morning traffic crawled along the boulevard past strip malls and car dealerships, mundane backdrops to a day that would split my life into before and after. I found myself gripping the steering wheel too tight, knuckles white. I'd known Monica for 6 years. She'd drawn up my LLC paperwork, handled a couple contract disputes when clients tried to skip out on payment. She was expensive but worth every penny. The kind of lawyer who spoke in bullets and never wasted a word. Her office occupied the corner suite of a mid-rise, all glass and polished wood. She met me at the door herself, unusual, wearing a charcoal suit and a concerned expression that said she'd cleared her schedule. Grant, she said, leading me to her office rather than a conference room. Personal, not business. What's going on? I laid it out for her. The photos, the timestamp during my deployment, Paige's deflection. I didn't mention the gut punch feeling, just the facts. Monica listened without interruption, making occasional notes. When I finished, she leaned forward. Here's what we can do today, she said, no hesitation. File for divorce, emergency orders to protect the house and business from liquidation, and motions to compel full discovery. Devices, financials, the works. And the kids? I asked. We'll need to address custody and support, she said, already reaching for a legal pad. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I don't want custody. She put down her pen. Grant, I understand you're angry, but it's not about anger, I said. Henry and Sophie aren't mine biologically. That much is clear. I won't drag them through a custody fight they didn't ask for. The court still considers you the presumptive father. I want the truth, I cut in. I want these men to stand in the light and take responsibility. But I won't use the kids as collateral. Monica studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. Okay, we'll focus on the financial and legal separation. And we'll add motions to identify these men, Rafael Ortiz and Trevor Hines, and require paternity testing. For the next hour, we drafted paperwork. I signed authorizations, initialed affidavits, wrote out a timeline of deployments against birth certificates. The mechanical process helped steady me. Before I left, I drafted a simple letter for Henry and Sophie on Monica's letterhead. I love you both. I won't lie to you. I won't make you choose sides. Some things are changing between your mom and me, but my door is always open to you. Monica promised to have everything filed by 3, with service scheduled for Paige that evening. I wrote her a check that made my account balance groan, but I didn't flinch. Some costs you just pay. The sun was setting as I pulled onto our street. My street now, I supposed. I slowed as I approached the house, noticing Paige's car idling about half a block away. She must have been waiting for me. Our eyes met through 2 windshields, and for a second, I thought she might drive toward me. Instead, her headlights switched off. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Unknown number. You'll regret this. The community center smelled like instant coffee and floor polish. I'd arrived 15 minutes early out of habit. Military time still ran my internal clock, and sat in one of those plastic chairs that seems designed to keep you uncomfortable. Monica sat beside me, reviewing notes in a leather portfolio. Remember, she said quietly, this is just preliminary. Mediators have no binding authority unless we agree to terms. We're here to establish baseline facts, not solve everything. I nodded. Just the truth. That's all I want. The mediation room was windowless and neutral, with a round table and a water pitcher that nobody touched. Harriet Collier introduced herself as a retired family court judge, who now handled high-conflict cases. She had silver hair cut in a practical bob, and wore a beige cardigan over a white blouse, the kind of woman who radiated calm authority. Mr. Ellison, she said, checking her watch, I understand you've filed for divorce and emergency orders regarding your assets. Yes, ma'am, she made a note. And Mrs. Ellison has been... The door opened, and Paige walked in 20 minutes late. She wore a cream-colored blouse I didn't recognize, and had done something different with her hair. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she clutched her purse like it might float away. I'm sorry, she said, in a voice pitched just above a whisper. Traffic was terrible, and She trailed off, glancing around the room as if surprised to find herself there. It was a performance I'd seen before. Not this exact one, but variations. The trembling voice, the fragile posture. Paige had always been good at becoming what she needed to be in any given moment. Harriet gestured to an empty chair. Mrs. Ellison, please join us. Monica straightened her spine but kept her expression neutral. The mediator walked through the basics: voluntary process, confidentiality, goals for today, while Paige sniffled occasionally into a tissue. When Harriet asked why we were here, Paige spoke first. Grant's always been controlling, she said, voice breaking. The budget, the schedule, everything had to be his way. Then, after his deployments, it got worse. He came home different, cold, and now he's punishing me, trying to take everything. Our home, accounts I helped build. I kept my face still as stone. The budget had kept us from drowning. The schedule had made sure Henry's soccer practice and Sophie's art class had a parent present. And the deployments? They'd paid for the roof over our heads. Monica cleared her throat. We have a different perspective. She pulled out 3 folders and laid them on the table. Here are Mr. Ellison's deployment dates over 13 years. Here are sign-in sheets from the children's school events Mr. Ellison attended when not deployed. And here are mortgage records showing Mr. Ellison's income as the primary source of payment. Harriet reviewed the documents carefully. And the reason for the divorce filing? She asked. Evidence of infidelity, Monica said, resulting in the conception of both children during Mr. Ellison's deployments. Paige's head snapped up. That's a lie. "We have photographic evidence and timestamps," Monica replied calmly. "And we're requesting full device discovery and forensic accounting of transfers made during Mr. Ellison's absence." The room went silent. Harriet looked between us, then tapped her pen on her legal pad. "Given these serious allegations, I recommend full device discovery for both parties and maintaining the status quo regarding the children until court-ordered evaluations can be completed. The children would remain in their primary residence with Mrs. Ellison for now, with Mr. Ellison having regular contact. My client agrees to device discovery," Monica said, "but wishes to clarify he is not seeking custody. He proposes child-led contact, where the children can call, text, or visit when they wish." Paige stared at me, bewildered. "You don't want custody?" I met her eyes directly. "I want them to have stability. I want the truth. Those aren't conflicting goals." Harriet made notes. "I'll recommend these interim measures to the court. The device discovery can proceed immediately upon court approval. Is there anything else for today?" Monica stood. "We'll be filing additional motions this afternoon for phone and cloud access, plus forensic accounting of Mrs. Ellison's financial transfers during deployments." Harriet nodded and closed her folder. "This concludes our session." Outside, the late afternoon sun felt good on my face after the fluorescent lighting. Monica handed me copies of the motions she'd be filing, then left for court before it closed. I was halfway to my truck when Paige caught up to me, clutching a stack of papers, service documents from Monica's process server. "You're tearing us apart," she hissed, waving the papers. "Our family, everything we built." I stopped and turned to face her. "Truth is the only thing I'm tearing," I said quietly. Our phones buzzed simultaneously. Court notices for tomorrow's emergency hearing had just been delivered. I met Gerald Pike in a windowless conference room at Monica's office. He was early 50s, wire-rimmed glasses, with a neat part in his gray-flecked hair, and the patient demeanor of someone who'd spent decades reading between numerical lines. When we shook hands, I noticed his grip was firm, but not showy. "Grant Ellison," I said. "Thanks for taking this on." "Gerald Pike. Forensic accounting is like archaeology with spreadsheets," he replied, settling 3 color-tabbed binders on the table. "We dig through layers of transactions to find the patterns people think they've buried." I liked him immediately. No dramatics, just quiet competence. "What am I looking at?" I asked, gesturing at the binders. Gerald opened the blue one. "I've started with your joint accounts, credit cards, and tax returns. The key is establishing baseline spending patterns and then identifying deviations." He flipped through meticulously organized sections. "Most households have predictable rhythms: mortgage, utilities, groceries. What I'm searching for are anomalies that coincide with your deployment dates." My phone buzzed. A text from Monica. "Judge signed device order. Extraction at 2:40. I'll call when we have access." "Good news," I told Gerald. "We'll have phone and cloud data this afternoon." He nodded. "That'll help identify any secondary accounts or transfer recipients." For the next hour, we traced financial tributaries through our marriage. Gerald flagged several patterns that made my stomach tighten. Regular transfers to an account labeled Rainy Day that accelerated during my deployments, plus Cash App transactions to handles that weren't familiar, Rafford and T. Hines 90. "These transfers align perfectly with your deployment schedule," Gerald said, tapping a timeline he'd constructed. "The frequency increases when you're overseas, then tapers when you return." I thought of Sophie's braces, Henry's baseball equipment, the kitchen renovation we'd postponed twice because budgets were tight, all while money flowed elsewhere. "How much total?" I asked. Gerald removed his glasses, polished them methodically. "Preliminary estimate is just over $68,000 over 7 years. The room seemed to tilt slightly. That was most of our emergency fund. Money that should have been there for the kids, for our future. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Paige. "Henry and Sophie are asking about pickup this week. Mediator says I should confirm you want normal schedule? I thought of the kids, their routines suddenly in flux. Whatever was happening between Paige and me, they deserved stability. Yes, normal pickup schedule for now, I replied. Let them know I'm looking forward to seeing them. Gerald continued his methodical work while I stepped out to grab us coffee. When I returned, he'd created a new spreadsheet. These Cash App handles, he said. I've correlated them with transfer dates. They appear frequently during specific months of your deployments. He didn't need to spell it out. 9 months before Henry's birth. 9 months before Sophie's. At 2:30, Monica texted that the extraction was proceeding. By 4:15, she confirmed they had lawful access to Paige's phone and cloud data. Gerald and I worked until early evening, his fingers flying across his laptop, as he correlated the new financial patterns with my deployment records. Each discovery felt like another small confirmation of what I already knew, but didn't want to believe. Mr. Ellison, Gerald said finally, closing his laptop. I've identified multiple patterns that suggest deliberate financial partitioning coinciding with your absences. I'll prepare a preliminary report for Ms. Patel by morning. We shook hands again. His steady confidence reassured me that the truth would have numbers behind it now, not just my suspicions. I grabbed dinner at a drive-thru, then sat in my extended stay hotel room reviewing job quotes to keep my business running through all this. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang. Monica. Grant, she said, her voice controlled but with an edge of triumph. We have preliminary access to the extracted data. I set down my pencil. And? There are extensive message threads with 2 individuals, Rafael Ortiz and Trevor Hines. The timestamps and content align precisely with your deployment periods and the children's conception dates. I closed my eyes for a moment. Confirmation shouldn't hurt when you already knew the truth. But it did. The messages are explicit, Monica continued. There can be no misinterpretation of the relationships or timelines. What's next? I asked, my voice steady. Tomorrow we notice both men, Monica said. The court needs to see the complete picture, not just Paige's actions, but the men who've avoided responsibility for over a decade. After we hung up, I sat in silence, staring at the generic hotel artwork on the wall. Names. We finally had names. Monica wasted no time after our discovery. By 9:30 the next morning, she had drafted notices for both Rafael Ortiz and Trevor Hines, complete with exhibits from the phone extraction showing message timestamps and identifying information. We're filing these before lunch, she said, sliding the documents across her desk. Once they're in the system, Judge Briggs will have the complete picture before the preliminary hearing tomorrow. I nodded, scanning the pages. The clinical language couldn't disguise what these documents really were. Proof of a double life Paige had maintained for years, with 2 men who'd happily stayed in the shadows while I raised their children. What happens next? I asked. Judge Briggs has a reputation for efficiency, Monica replied. She'll likely freeze assets pending the full hearing and order genetic testing immediately. The lab can have results back within a week. We walked to the courthouse together, the morning sun already heating the pavement. Monica moved with purpose, her heels clicking against the marble floors as we navigated to the clerk's office. I felt strangely calm watching her file the notices, like I was finally taking back control of a situation that had been manipulated for years. By noon, Judge Briggs had reviewed our filings and issued an emergency order freezing the home equity and ordering all parties to appear at a status conference the following week. She also ordered immediate genetic testing with an expedited lab courier, estimated 5 to 7 days for results. This is exactly what we wanted, Monica said as we left the courthouse. Judge Briggs is signaling she takes this seriously. And the genetic testing? I asked. Formality at this point, given the evidence, but necessary for legal paternity establishment. The lab will contact all parties directly. That evening, I picked up pizza from Henry and Sophie's favorite place and drove to what used to be our home. I texted Paige from the driveway. Brought dinner for the kids. Coming to the door." She didn't respond, but I saw the curtain move in the front window. I placed the pizza boxes on the porch with a six-pack of soda and knocked. Henry opened the door, his face lighting up. "Dad, you brought Sal's." "Sure did, buddy." I kept my voice casual, refusing to make this moment heavier than it needed to be. Sophie appeared behind him, her eyes wary but hopeful. Are you staying?" "Not tonight, Soph. I have some work to catch up on, but I wanted to make sure you guys had a good dinner." I chatted with them on the porch for a few minutes about school and their activities, carefully keeping the conversation neutral. Before leaving, I slipped a note into Henry's hand. "Call if needed. Anytime." He nodded, understanding passing between us. As I walked back to my truck, my phone buzzed with a text from Paige. "This is abandonment. You're hurting them more by playing delivery boy than if you just disappeared." I didn't respond. There was no point engaging with her attempts to reframe reality. Back at my temporary apartment, I found an email from Gerald with his completed summary. He'd traced every significant fund transfer during my deployments, color-coded timelines showing when money moved out of our joint accounts and into Paige's separate rainy day fund, or to the Cash App handles now confirmed as Raphael and Trevor. I forwarded Gerald's report to Monica with a brief note. "This completes the financial picture. Let me know if you need anything else." An hour later, just as I was reviewing quotes for a bathroom remodel job scheduled for next month, my phone rang. It was Monica. "We have a response from Rafael Ortiz," she said without preamble. "His attorney has confirmed he'll appear at the status conference." "And Trevor?" I asked. "Trevor's attorney just filed a request for delay, citing a pre-planned business trip. Judge Briggs denied it within 30 minutes. I exhaled slowly. "So what happens now?" "Trevor Hines can either show up voluntarily or be compelled. I've already prepared a subpoena in case he chooses the second option." She paused briefly. "Either way, Grant, we will see Trevor Hines under subpoena at the status conference." I set down my calculator, the budget I'd been working on suddenly less important than what Monica was telling me. After 13 years of shadows, both men would finally stand in the same room with me, facing the same judge, answering for the same deception. I spent the weekend prepping for Monday's status conference, reviewing every document Gerald and Monica had assembled. The lab had called all parties for DNA collection on Friday afternoon. A quick cheek swab that took less than 5 minutes, but would change everything. When Monday morning arrived, I dressed in my Navy suit, the one I'd worn to Henry's 5th grade graduation. As I straightened my tie in the mirror, I noticed how much older I looked than even a few weeks ago. The lines around my eyes had deepened, like weathering on stone. The courthouse hallway buzzed with morning cases. Monica met me by the water fountain, tablet in hand. "Lab results came in an hour ago," she said quietly. "Judge Briggs already has them. And," I kept my voice steady, "confirmation on both counts. Raphael is Henry's biological father. Trevor is Sophie's." I nodded, having expected it but still feeling the impact like a physical blow. "Who else is here?" "Raphael arrived with counsel. Trevor's attorney is here, but no sign of Trevor yet." We entered courtroom 4 and took our seats at the plaintiff's table. Paige sat across the aisle with her lawyer, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who kept shuffling papers. She didn't look at me. Raphael sat 2 rows back, shoulders hunched in a charcoal blazer that seemed a size too large. No sign of Trevor. At precisely 9:02, the bailiff called, "All rise," and Judge Briggs entered, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Be seated," she said, arranging files before her. "This is a status conference in Ellison versus Ellison, case number 23 to DR 4872. Let the record show all parties are present, except for Mr. Hines." Trevor's attorney stood. "Your Honor, Mr. Hines is experiencing travel delays. We ask for—" "Mr. Palmer, your client was ordered to appear. We'll proceed without him, and I'll issue a bench warrant if he's not present by tomorrow's hearing." Judge Briggs's tone left no room for argument. She continued, "The court has received the laboratory reports confirming paternity. Mr. Ortiz is the biological father of Henry Ellison. Mr. Hines is the biological father of Sophie Ellison." She looked directly at me. "Mr. Ellison is not the biological father of either child." I'd known this truth for weeks, but hearing it stated so clinically in open court made my chest tighten. Judge Briggs turned to Page's attorney. "Mr. Harmon, I understand you have a motion?" Harmon stood, straightening his glasses. "Yes, Your Honor. In light of the paternity findings, we move to restructure the temporary orders. Specifically, we request a suspension of Mr. Grant Ellison's regular time with the minor children to reduce confusion during this transition period." I felt my jaw clench. Harmon continued, "However, we also move to maintain Mr. Ellison's temporary support obligations under the doctrine of equitable estoppel until the biological fathers are fully ordered into their responsibilities." So that was her play. Cut me out of the children's lives immediately, while keeping my financial obligations intact as long as possible. Monica rose. "Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to have it both ways. Ms. Ellison seeks to terminate Mr. Ellison's parental relationship while extending his financial obligations. We object." Judge Briggs nodded. "I'll hear arguments on this motion tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Until then, the current child-led contact arrangement continues." She turned to Raphael. "Mr. Ortiz, you will need to be present as well. And, Mr. Palmer, ensure your client understands the consequences of another absence." With a sharp rap of her gavel, the hearing ended. 45 minutes that might redefine the rest of my life. Outside the courthouse, Monica outlined our counter-arguments for tomorrow, while I tried to focus. My phone vibrated with a text from Henry. "Can you pick me up from practice?" Mom said she can't make it. "I need to go," I told Monica, showing her the message. She squeezed my arm. "This is exactly why Judge Briggs will see through their motion. The kids still need you, regardless of biology." I drove to Henry's school, parking at the curb by the athletic fields. Practice had just ended, and I watched him jog toward my truck, gym bag slung over his shoulder. His face, so familiar to me after 13 years, showed a caution that broke my heart. He climbed in, tossing his bag in the back. "Thanks for coming." "Always will when you need me," I said. We drove in silence for a few blocks before he spoke again. "Mom said there was a hearing today." He stared out the window. About who my real dad is." I pulled over, putting the truck in park. This wasn't a conversation for driving. "Henry," I said, turning to face him, "there was a hearing. The tests showed that biologically, I'm not your father." His eyes filled, but he didn't cry. "So, what happens now? Are you still my dad?" The question hit me like artillery fire. Direct, devastating, impossible to dodge. I reached for his shoulder, my hand steady even when my voice wasn't. "I am the man who shows up when you need him," I said gently. "That doesn't end. Not tomorrow, not next year, not ever." He nodded, blinking hard, and I drove him home, watching in my rearview mirror until he was safely inside. I couldn't go back to my empty apartment. Instead, I parked at the overlook above the town and sat in my truck as rain began to fall, tapping a rhythm on the roof that matched my heartbeat. The dashboard clock read 8:42 p.m., then 9:17, then 10:05 as I sat motionless, staring into the dark. Would tomorrow's hearing strip away my right to be there for Henry and Sophie? Would Judge Briggs see through Page's attempt to have it both ways? I watched raindrops trace paths down my windshield and wondered if morning would take my time away. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. Just sat in that truck, watching raindrops until my eyes burned, then drove home at 3 a.m. and stared at my ceiling fan until dawn. By 6, I'd made my decision. I showered, dressed in my navy button-down, the one I saved for client meetings, and texted Monica. Not fighting custody. Have addresses for both men. Meeting them before court. Need letters explaining their obligations. She responded immediately. Risky move. Wait for me. But I couldn't wait. The hearing was at 9, and I needed both men to understand what was coming. I pulled up Rafael Ortiz's apartment complex at 7:15. Third floor, Unit 308. The building smelled like old carpet and someone's burnt coffee. I knocked 3 times. Footsteps approached, then stopped. I could feel him looking through the peephole. Rafael Ortiz, I called through the door. My name is Grant Ellison. The chain lock rattled but stayed fastened. The door opened just enough to reveal a slice of his face. Dark eyes, stubbled jaw, wariness etched into every feature. What do you want? His voice was low, guarded. You know who I am, I said. I'm the man who's been raising your son for 13 years. He swallowed. Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Neither does Henry, I replied, keeping my voice even. But he's got it now, because his whole world just changed. Raphael's eyes darted down. Paige said. I don't care what Paige said. I cut him off, not harshly, but firmly. I care what the court says. And the court says you're Henry's father. I pulled Monica's letter from my pocket, a clear explanation of the support order that would be requested at today's hearing. This explains your obligations. The court date is at 9 this morning. Judge Briggs doesn't tolerate absences. I slid the paper through the narrow opening. Show up and support your son. His fingers took the paper slowly. He stared at it, then back at me. I didn't know, he said quietly. Not until the test. I swear. That doesn't matter anymore, I replied. What matters is what you do now. He nodded once, Adam's apple bobbing. I'll be there. I turned to leave, then stopped. Henry likes baseball. Plays second base. He's good. I didn't know why I added that. Maybe to make Henry real to him. Not just a financial obligation. Raphael nodded again, more firmly this time. Trevor Hines lived in a neat subdivision with trimmed hedges and 2-car garages. His house had a boat in the driveway, a Mastercraft X26, easily $100,000 worth of weekend fun. He answered the door in workout clothes, breathing hard like he'd just finished a set of something. His easy smile faltered when he saw me. Can I help you? Casual, like we might be neighbors. Trevor Hines? I'm Grant Ellison. Recognition flickered. The smile stayed, but thinned out. Oh, right. Look, my attorney's handling all this. Your attorney didn't show up yesterday, I said. Just like you've been not showing up for 11 years. Trevor leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. Let's not make this personal, okay? The lawyers will sort it out. I placed Gerald Pike's spreadsheet on the porch railing. This is personal. It's Sophie's life in numbers. He glanced at it, smirk still in place. What's that supposed to be? 11 years of expenses, itemized by year. I tapped the top page. Braces, $4,150. Soccer cleats, replaced 3 times a season during growth spurts. ER visit for a skateboard fall. That was at 2 a.m., by the way. I was there. You weren't. The smile began to fade as his eyes tracked down the columns. Computer for school. Summer camp. Prescription eyeglasses. I flipped to the summary page. Total, $157,432. That's what raising your daughter costs. Trevor's smirk had completely disappeared now. He reached for the spreadsheet just as a car pulled up at the curb. A woman in a blazer stepped out, carrying a leather portfolio. Mr. Trevor Hines, I have documents for you from the county court. I nodded at the process server. Perfect timing. Trevor's face hardened as he accepted the subpoena. This is harassment. No, I said quietly. This is parenthood. I walked back to my truck, feeling his eyes boring into my back the whole way. The courthouse lobby buzzed with morning activity as I leaned against a marble column, waiting for Monica. At 8:45, I spotted Rafael Ortiz coming through the metal detectors, dressed in dark slacks and a button-down that still had creases from the store. He carried my letter, folded into quarters. 5 minutes later, Trevor Hines arrived with his attorney, a sharp-suited man with an irritated expression. Trevor looked smaller somehow, less cocky than he had on his porch. Monica appeared beside me. Both showed up. "Good work. Will it stick?" I asked, watching the two men who'd been ghosts for over a decade take solid form in the courthouse lobby, shoulders hunched, waiting to be called to account. "Judge Briggs makes sure it sticks," Monica assured me. "Come on, it's time." I sat beside Monica in Judge Briggs's courtroom, my hands folded in my lap to keep them steady. The polished wood of the gallery bench felt cool against my palms. Across the aisle, Paige stared straight ahead, her attorney whispering in her ear. Raphael and Trevor sat separately with their own counsel, Raphael looking resigned, Trevor fidgeting with his watch. Judge Briggs entered, and her clerk called the room to order. She settled into her chair with an efficiency that reminded me of sergeants I'd served under. No wasted movement, no patience for theater. "We have multiple matters before us today," she said, voice clear and measured. "Let's proceed with evidence." Monica rose first. She moved through her presentation like someone mapping coordinates, precise and unemotional. She started with my deployment records, lined up against mortgage payments that kept the house standing. "As you can see, Your Honor, Mr. Ellison maintained the family home through 4 deployments. During his service, he was the primary income provider." Next came the daily proof. Coach evaluations from Brenda Shaw showing my attendance at every game and practice I wasn't deployed for. School pickup logs, parent-teacher conferences. Coach Shaw will testify that Mr. Ellison was consistently present for Henry's athletic activities for the past 7 years, Monica said, placing Brenda's affidavit on the evidence table. Dr. Alan Chu's pediatric records followed. Vaccination appointments, sick visits, permission forms with my signature authorizing treatments during times Paige couldn't be reached. Dr. Chu notes that Mr. Ellison was present for 83% of all medical visits when he was not deployed, Monica stated. She glanced at Paige, who shifted in her seat. Gerald Pike took the stand next, walking the court through spreadsheets that turned abstracts into hard numbers. He traced the money flow with his finger, showing how funds disappeared from our joint account during each deployment, transferring to Paige's rainy day account. "The pattern is consistent with the deployment dates," Gerald explained, adjusting his wire-rim glasses. "Approximately $47,000 was diverted over the course of 4 deployments. I remembered those deployments, sand and sweat, and constant worry about whether the mortgage was covered." Meanwhile, Paige had been building her escape hatch, dollar by dollar. When my turn came, I walked to the stand and placed my hand on the Bible. After swearing in, I sat and looked directly at Judge Briggs. "Mr. Ellison," Monica began, "please tell the court your position regarding custody of the minor children." I took a deep breath. "I will not fight for custody. Henry and Sophie have a mother. They have biological fathers who now have names and obligations." I paused, feeling the weight of every word. "I'm here to protect my home and business, end the lie, and leave a door open that doesn't drag them through a war." "Can you elaborate on that last point?" Monica asked. "I've been their dad for 13 years. I can't erase that, and I wouldn't want to. But forcing custody exchanges or visitation schedules would put them in the middle. I want them to know I'm here if they want to reach out. On their terms, not through court orders." Judge Briggs nodded slightly. I couldn't tell if she approved, but at least she was listening. After cross-examination, where Paige's attorney tried to paint me as abandoning the children, Judge Briggs called a 30-minute recess. When we returned, she was ready with her ruling. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, the court rules as follows. Her voice filled the room with quiet authority. The marital home and business, Ellison Remodeling, shall remain Mr. Ellison's sole property. Ms. Ellison's claim for equitable division is denied based on the evidence of separate funds and Mr. Ellison's sole management of the business. I felt my shoulders relax slightly. The funds diverted to Ms. Ellison's separate account during Mr. Ellison's deployments, totaling $47,213, shall be repaid to Mr. Ellison as restitution. The court finds this diversion was done without Mr. Ellison's knowledge or consent. Page's face hardened to stone. Mr. Ortiz and Mr. Hines are adjudicated as the biological fathers of Henry and Sophie, respectively. Both shall pay child support according to state guidelines into a court-managed account solely for the benefit of the children. Raphael nodded slightly. Trevor stared at his hands. Mr. Ellison's presumptive paternity is terminated, along with any financial obligations tied to that status. However, Judge Briggs continued, looking directly at me, the court acknowledges Mr. Ellison's role in these children's lives. She set her papers down. Contact between Mr. Ellison and the children shall be child-led. Letters, calls, and attendance at school events may occur at the children's request. There will be no forced exchanges, no court-ordered visitation schedule. This arrangement respects both Mr. Ellison's boundary and the children's needs. Judge Briggs looked at each party in turn. This ruling is final. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck with finality. Outside in the hallway, clerks handed Raphael and Trevor forms to complete. Payroll deduction authorizations, garnishment schedules, contact information for the court account. Trevor stared at his papers like they were written in a foreign language. Raphael methodically filled his out, his pen moving steadily across each line. Paige walked past without looking at any of us, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. I stepped outside into the courthouse plaza. The sun hit my face, warm and clear. For the first time in months, I took a breath that didn't feel like it was cutting my lungs. The light seemed different. Not just bright, but real, solid. The kind of light you can rebuild in. A week after the court ruling, I settled into the Adirondack chair on my front porch with a mug of black coffee. Fall was creeping in. You could smell it in the air. That crisp edge that makes everything sharper somehow. The final court orders had arrived yesterday, neatly bound in a blue folder with the county seal embossed on the cover. I flipped through them again. Though I'd already memorized every paragraph, the house was mine. The business was secure. The lie was over. On paper, it looked like a clean victory. My phone buzzed with a new job request. A bathroom remodel over in Cedar Hills. Third one this week. Word had gotten around that Ellison Remodeling was taking bookings again. People love a comeback story, I guess, even if they don't know the whole truth behind it. Remember those deployment nights when you'd count the ceiling tiles in your bunk? 1, 2, 300. Anything to make your mind tired enough to sleep. I never thought I'd be doing the same thing in my own home, listening to the silence where kid voices used to be. I took a slow sip of coffee, letting the bitter warmth fill my mouth. The porch needed staining before winter hit. Another project to fill the hours. My phone vibrated against the armrest. A text from Sophie. My heart did that thing it always does when her name appears. A little jump, a little ache. I opened it to find a photo of a watercolor painting. Blues and purples swirled into what might have been a mountain range, or maybe just colors she liked. No caption, just the image. I typed back, "Beautiful work. Proud of you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "Thanks. Miss you." I stared at those 2 words for a long moment. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. What do you say to that? Eventually I typed, "Miss you too, kiddo," and hit send. I set the phone down, watching a pair of cardinals dart between the maple branches. That tree had been a sapling when Henry was born, when I thought Henry was mine. Now it towered over the yard, roots deep and branches strong enough for the tire swing I'd hung 3 summers ago. The phone rang an hour later. Henry's name on the screen. "Hey," I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "The car won't start," he said without preamble. "Mom's at work, and I need to get to practice." "What happens when you turn the key?" "Nothing, just clicking." I smiled despite myself. "Sounds like a dead starter. Got a wrench set?" "Yeah, in the garage." "Look under the hood. Find where the battery connects to the starter. It's the big cylinder on the passenger side near the engine block." I walked him through checking the connections, tightening the battery terminals, and trying again. No tools clanking against concrete, no frustrated sighs, just focused questions and determined replies. "Try it now," I said, after he'd worked through each step. The line went quiet for a moment. Then I heard the engine turn over, catch, and purr to life. It worked! The excitement in his voice took me back to the day he'd learned to ride his bike without training wheels. That same pride, that same triumph. "Good job, kid. You fixed it yourself." "Thanks, Dad." The word hung between us for a heartbeat. "Anytime," I said finally. "Better get to practice." "Yeah, bye." I hung up first, giving him the win. Let him be the one who fixed his car. Let him be the one who ended the call on his terms. Inside, I took out a small notebook, Army habit, writing things down to make them real, and recorded a single line: "Distance is room to heal." That evening, as the sun dipped low, I stood at the edge of my property and looked down the road that led to Paige's new rental. The kids were there now, building a different life with different rules. Some nights, like this one, I missed them so badly my chest ached with it. I can't be their dad anymore. That's the truth I wake up to every day. I need this distance as much as they do, to mend what broke in me when the lie cracked open. Will time keep the door open? I asked the darkening sky, without reopening the wound. The night didn't answer. I didn't expect it to. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.